Okay, we're back. If you saw that little video up there, that was the correct date for the finals. It is going to be at the Sangam studio at the S-Plex Center. That's at Digital Media City, not right by the train station. So if I were you and I was coming to the finals, I would get a little bit earlier. There's buses and stuff that you can take there, or take a taxi there, but not quite as easy to get to, but I think a very good venue itself cool. When you get inside. It's a very cool theater that we've got set up. We've done a couple finals there before. It is not the one that you've seen probably in the last couple of GSLs. I know sometimes we're in the Jomshil
Yeah, we were
theater.
in Jomshil for the last few.
Every GSL finals, we have people that go to the wrong theaters because there's a couple that are owned here by the company.
I mean, I work out here, and it's still confusing for me.
So sometimes
we had
I'm
the
like,
meeting
wait a minute,
earlier, and I was like, wait, where do we go? Can you send me the pin of that location on maps? Like,
right.
I don't know where to be, but it should be cool. I love whenever we take the GSL, especially in the finals, to some bigger venue. I feel like it's deserving. I mean, this is a historic venue in and of itself, but...
Yeah, this studio's great. I mean, this has basically been the core, the one that we're in right now is kind of the core GSL studio, which you're probably used to seeing. I think we've had this one for like 9 years or something like that. Something, a really long amount of time. But there are a couple other ones, and I do think the change of scenery is also kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's always refreshing when you have that, especially for a final. It just gives this whole different atmosphere to the event. It makes it fun. And speaking of fun, we're going to have a really good match here, Tasteless.
Yes,
ByuN versus Cure is the TVTs are going to begin. The winner of this series is going to go up against Maru in the winner's match. So if you're a TVT fan, you're going to be eating well tonight. It's going to be a lot of Terran versus Terran action, especially if Soup plays the same way that he did in that first series against Maru. That was a bit lopsided. And
they say TVT is good for you, but the doctor might say this is too much TVT for a healthy person, okay? There's going to be a lot of Terran versus Terran here tonight. We're going to go into this match, I think, in a second here. Yeah, it's loading up. Cure versus ByuN coming up here. I think Cure is the favorite here. I think he should probably take this 2-0, but let's see what ByuN's got in store. ByuN has some very smart tactics and kind of different approaches to the early game. He might be able to, I don't know, judo flip Cure here as Cure tries to get his early game started. Our game is loaded up, guys. Let's get into this.
Let's get ready to rumble, rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. You looking for trouble? Let's get ready to rumble, rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Tell them it's going down now. Let's.
Okay, Cure in the top right, ByuN in the bottom left. And TVT, I feel like out of all the early games, I find this one the most interesting. There's so many things that can happen.
Some ByuN fans in the crowd. I feel like ByuN has maybe the largest fan base of players here in Korea. I know Maru has a really strong one, but I feel like every time ByuN plays in GSL, we always have extra fans coming out with ByuN signs.
100%. I feel like when you, hold on, there's lots of signs.
Oh,
Terran,
Terran,
Protoss GSL winner since yesterday. Yeah, we do. We got to make this. We love you too.
Oh,
Thank
this
you.
little romance.
Where's
my love you sign?
We gotta. Not yet. Years later, State. This is my moment. No, I certainly would love to have a Protoss champion for one. Second of all, to what you were saying, it seems like the best player always going to have some fans no matter what, right? Because you're fans of the guys play. But then there's the charismatic player, which is ByuN, and he's always going to have his fans coming out. And ByuN's a guy, it's hard to not root for him, right?
Yeah, he's always has this special flair to the way that he plays. His own little unique take on Terran, kind of like the way that Gumiho plays, but Gumiho would put him as a bit more quirky, whereas ByuN is more of this kind of aggressive, untamed beast in basically every single matchup. It's fun to watch, especially at Dallas. ByuN had an absolutely heroic run, if you missed it, where he started in, I believe, round 1 of the open bracket and made it all the way to top 8, which, if you're unfamiliar with the format of those kind of events, that is a gauntlet that you basically have to run, where you're playing all day on day 1 to make it into day number 2, and it is fatiguing, it is exhausting. Got to play a lot of different players. You don't have the time to prep or prepare for them the same way you would, say, in like the winner's stage, where you have an idea of what the bracket's going to be heading into it.
Yeah, it's a problem because it's a stamina issue. Like some players have way better stamina than others. Some can play for like a solid, it's a 5-hour chunk and they're fine. Others can do like 10 hours.
Yeah,
You know?
ByuN historically has had issues with his wrists or with just endurance in general. I think more than pretty much any other player that I can think of. I know Maru at some stages did have some problems with his wrists. I guess if we go way back, MVP probably had the most problems with his wrists. It actually basically forced him into retirement.
Well, he just sort of played until his wrists were completely blown out and stopped. I think he was, but he also, it's kind of weird. With MVP, he was just like, I'm just not going to stop. Like, I'm making too much money right now. I don't care.
Play through the injury.
I'm going to play through the injury, which is, looking back at it, I'm like, ugh. Like,
it was pretty.
For how long StarCraft 2 turned out to last.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of euphoria right when StarCraft 2 came out, but maybe a little bit of fear, too, of like, oh, is this just going to go away right away?
Yeah, it could have been a flash in the pan, absolutely.
Yeah, was this going to be like 2 years of StarCraft 2 and you know, nothing else? But
it led to one of the most epic eras of dominance of any player.
100%.
I think it's basically unrivaled up until Cyril came out in recent years. I mean, MVP was just a beast. All right, ByuN now coming out, 3 Reapers, 2 Hellions, but Kier well prepared. Does have the Cyclone on the back line to defend and a bunker in front. But yeah, going back to MVP, I remember even back in the day, MVP, when his wrists were really starting to give out, was beginning to mix in a lot more mech play to his style of Terran, which is just so insane because I mean, my memory's a little bit foggy, but I don't recall mech actually being that strong back then. I think it was mostly just Goody that was trying to make it a thing, and everyone was telling Goody, no, it's not going to be a thing in StarCraft 2. This isn't StarCraft 1.
Well, it also seemed like he had gotten to this point where he's so ahead of everybody, it's kind of hard to know. That's got to be a challenge when you're that far ahead. Like, what's the solution? You know, are there better things you should be doing? Should you be trying to change it up, or should you be sticking with what works? You know? But yeah, he was doing mech that was not as wrist intensive. In theory, I don't know how true that actually is. I mean, you are just still clicking a lot.
I think specifically for Terran, the fact that you don't need to stutter step constantly
yeah,
is probably the big difference there for mech. You kind of said it, and forget it's the wrong word, but it's much more positional than it is micro intensive, and that's a fun style. I like that we're seeing more Sky Terran TBT mech games, although we aren't getting really a taste of that in this one. Both these players just kind of building up economically. I don't think we've had a single unit go down yet, Tasteless. This has been one of the slowest early game TBTs I've seen in a long time, especially for 2 players like this. I mean, with ByuN, I was expecting a little bit more of an explosive early game, but
I think they both are ready for the other one to attack into him. You know, TBT, I think last season and the season before, it had these funny moments where, like, you did end up with both sides attacking each other at the same time, and it just got weird. So I guess maybe they, in this game, tried to start out slow, and then nothing happened on either side. And so we're finally seeing action from ByuN. A scan here sees a naked main, which you have to assume that there's a drop coming in here. Usually you stay in the main because the drops are where you're going to be hit. You're probably not going to be pushed right into the front of your base.
Marine's barely missing that first Cyclone. Nice micro there by Kier to pull it back. As ByuN's trying to find any damage he can finesse here on the front line, but not getting too much done. He is thinning out the Marine count quite a bit. But all in all, I think a relatively even trade there for ByuN. And also in the front line, the fact that there's a siege tank and bunker here, the natural expansion means that those Hellions and Reapers really can't get too much damage done. And as it is, we're just going to kind of walk on into the middle game without either player having too much of a lead. I mean, Kier does have the faster third command center, so his SCP counts a touch ahead. He's going to be landing that third orbital a little bit faster than ByuN is, so
yeah,
economically, he does have a tempo lead, but
overall, there hasn't been anything really of consequence yet in this game. There's been some skirmishes. Nothing really that's a big deal has happened. That third CC lands for Kier. ByuN is going to be mirroring that in a second here with his own CC.
I think maybe the most interesting thing that's happened so far in this game is the fact that ByuN is completely foregoing the Raven in this matchup, which has become such a staple of TBT, especially in the Korean meta. Here in GSL Season 1 and Season 2, you see Raven basically every single TBT. It's oftentimes the backbone of your army because you can disable siege tanks, you can drop auto turrets. It changes the dynamic of fights quite a lot. Instead, ByuN is basically just going pure manpower. It's all bio, tanks. Does have some Reapers and Hellions mixed in, but in terms of army, it's all about this. It's about going for crazy drops, high-octane aggression, because it's going to be hard for Kier to actually stop this because he's invested so many resources in those high-tech units. Now these 4 medevacs coming into the main base. Kier is out of position with much of his army. There is 1 siege tank down by the main base CC, and that should be enough to anchor this position. It is buying Cure some time, and the fact that Cure has been kind of setting up his main base like this, there really isn't that much he can siege.
So he's going to wait for 1-1. Oh, dude.
He has
Great
to get
play
out.
by ByuN to pick up. I was about to say, you know, I think deliberately so, the infrastructure wasn't set up down there in the main, so there wasn't a lot to punish. Like, he got set up, and he goes, okay. And I think it was a smart move that ByuN waited for the right moment, picked up, and got out. Because otherwise, he's going to be in a spot where he could end up getting overwhelmed, especially by the 1-1 infantry. And then he loses everything, and it's like he's just giving his units away. He's going to set up for another push over here. We've already got Cure on the map. They may end up just colliding in the middle of the map.
I'm a little bit worried about ByuN if they do happen to collide, and he's going to go for a drop instead, and the main base going to try and drop on top of this siege tank, actually dropping a siege tank of his own. A little bit of an awkward engagement there to start things off, as ByuN just did not have enough.
Yeah, sloppy move there by ByuN. ByuN actually going to go with a run by. I kind of forgot these units were even still in the game. They were tucked outside the natural for a little bit. And another drop in the main. Now, you know, this is still doing something. I think there should be a little bit more muscle here in the push from Cure, but can Cure get all the way to where he needs to be? A nice pickup there from ByuN to save his tanks. Somehow this tank is still in this game. This is wild.
That Cure is eventually going to be able to get this under control, though. The Marines get cleaned up as well as the siege tank, and ByuN, I mean, he sacrificed so much in terms of having a technical army to go for this kind of drop play, and it just did not pan out. Yeah, he did get some SCVs killed, but you see Cure right now, double the siege tank count, even had a few more Marines. Upgrades basically equal in terms of 2-2 timing. And Cure has those Ravens, which he can use to cast Interference Matrix, but a nice engagement to start things off here by ByuN with Cure unsieged, is able to thin out the Marine count a little bit, but still the Terran army of Cure. He has so much on the ground right now in terms of Marines, in terms of siege tanks. I don't know if ByuN's going to have the firepower to hold on, especially once Interference Matrix works its way into the mix.
Okay, scans down here. The Vikings are going to drive that Raven away just a little bit. I got to say, this game's pretty neck and neck. It does seem like ByuN is beginning to get slightly ahead, assuming this push doesn't wipe this out. Well, hold on. He's going to drive this out. I thought there was a chance ByuN might be able to come down there and deny that. The Marines are going to try to stim this down.
They might get it.
Actually get this? That's insane! I was so sure that was going to get away.
I was close to surviving.
Okay, so now Cure is sitting very comfortably.
He has his 4th command center already done back at home.
I thought it was going to be this unremarkable moment where the command center floats away and we kind of forget that even happened as it sets up somewhere else. ByuN may feel pressure to try to come back out on the map. The army supply is about 20 ahead. So, I mean, this is pretty scary.
Upgrades still dead even. And
how many medevacs does Cure have? Can he actually pick up everything and drop somewhere?
I think he could just barely. He might leave some Marines behind, but I think for Cure, the game plan here isn't so much to go for the drop play that ByuN was trying. I think you know that you killed ByuN's 4th base. You're taking a 4th expansion of your own. You have map control. Just continue to maintain the map control. Keep ByuN cornered on 3 bases. Force him to drop mules on those expansions and mine them out more quickly because you're basically maxed. You've been winning these engagements. You've taken out an expansion. You just want to not sustain big damage and slow down the expansion of ByuN, and you will just be a step ahead pretty much the entire game. And Cure knows it too. He's powering up with 3 more barracks back at home. He's getting into a really strong position, even splitting these armies. I love this split. Both the army in the top left and the bottom right here for Cure are very hard to deal with unless ByuN basically takes his entire force to try to squash one. And what Cure is doing is he's just kind of sharking across the map, trying to deny ByuN this 4th base for as long as possible because he knows the longer he's mining from that 4th expansion at 12 o'clock and ByuN is not, it's going to be in Cure's favor. He's building quite a big bank.
Okay, there's going to be a sandwich coming in here. ByuN's going to be hitting from both sides. This is so bad for Cure. Now the reinforcements are going to come in here, but it's too late. That position's been wiped out. ByuN escapes. The game is suddenly looking a lot more even. We see Cure moving down to the bottom, but ByuN's about to meet him here. I don't think he can make any headway. In the matter of a couple seconds, ByuN with good tactics, good positional play, is in the lead.
Good play getting that surround right there. He is able to equalize things in terms of army supply, but the fact that Cure had so many siege tanks means that, oh, he's still producing them 2 at a time. It means that ByuN doesn't really get a siege tank advantage from that position. He just kind of evens things up. It's only a 2 siege tank lead. And Cure is still trying to deny that 4th base. Right now, he's actually looking into the main base, I think, potentially with a drop. As these siege tanks are in the most. what a stalemate! I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in StarCraft 2.
No, as I was watching, I'm like, wait, how does this play out exactly?
That's so funny.
All right, 3-3 is going to come in here. Stab. Oh, and Cure is not looking. That's a lot of damage. The tanks are going to get wiped before they can even fire back.
Wow, that was a big L for Cure. I mean, losing the first army in the middle kind of evened things a little bit.
Oh, no, that's better. Oh!
They both dropped the scan.
So
it's ridiculous.
Funny.
But ByuN with back-to-back huge wins in terms of the fight means that he's going to have a lot of momentum in terms of army supply here as Cure tries to fight back to a maxed army. And now look at it. Before it was only a 2 siege tank lead for ByuN, but now it's 9 siege tanks to the 4 here of Cure. He's been able to take his 4th expansion. Also expanding down into the 6 o'clock position is ByuN, so things have equalized really quickly here as another engagement now coming in. This time ByuN able to take down basically all of the medevacs of Cure. Cure has no more medevacs on the field at all. He is able to snipe down a couple of siege tanks here with the Marines, but I feel like ByuN is just getting the better trade in pretty much all of this. The only thing that's really scary here for ByuN is that the Marine count has really thinned out over these engagements.
So, I mean, I gotta say, this game's getting crazier and crazier. Both sides are basically growing into their parts of the map. I think there is, they're actually dead. No, they're not dead even. Cure's actually up 1 base barely, but it's not finished. It certainly doesn't have workers at it. This could go either way. It does feel like unless he opens up these destructible rocks on the map or mines the minerals out, it's a little bit harder to move from the middle to the bottom right or the top left. That's true for both sides.
Yeah, maybe biting off a little bit more than he could chew, trying to attack into 5 siege tanks on the high ground there. And Cure, I think, recognizing that he has a Marine supply advantage, is going to pivot all the way down here. Maybe even snipe some medevacs. Is able to get one, does get the second one too. Man, they die so fast to the +3 bio. Even able to snipe a siege tank as well. And those are the kind of wins that Cure needs. Let's take down this sensor tower too, and Cure stabilizing on his side of the map. I am surprised that he wasn't run over by ByuN after ByuN won those 2 engagements. He's done a really good job of anchoring this position, and now look at the siege tanks unprotected here in the middle. At least one going to get taken out. Some nice wins for Cure.
It just does seem like, I guess this is going to be a smaller victory here for Cure, but overall, ByuN is a better fighter. He's a little bit smoother with these engagements. You know, very true to how ByuN has played. But we've got a flank coming in here. The tanks are going to get completely killed off. More tanks are sliding in. Now, if ByuN has lost enough tanks, I think the count right now is 8-6, so I guess that's fairly even. But I don't know where each tank is, but it seems like most of ByuN's or Cure's tanks, are together. So he might be able to move into a spot where he could, cement some kind of setup. Oh, hold on. There's going to be another attack in here. The surround is crazy.
Yeah, surround looking really good, but actually those Marines going the wrong way will get taken out by the siege tanks. And notably for the siege tanks on Cure's side, it feels like he's pulling a lot of them from the defensive line. I'm not sure how many we actually have on defense for Cure, as he has, 5 or 6 here in the middle and more being rallied across the map. It might just be 1 or 2 siege tanks on the defense as he's trying to get as much pressure here in the center as possible. The thing is, Alcyone, with these cliff edges and the rocks, it really does lend itself in these TVT wars to kind of a game of attrition. And so Cure is actually going to try and breach again through the third. Only 1 siege tank is sieged up here for ByuN.
Okay, he's done it. He's going to loop back around here to the bottom. There is a drop inbound here. I'm not clear what's here to defend yet.
Just 1 siege tank and a ton of SCVs. That might be enough here for Cure. He's going to set his eyes and set up the 6 o'clock position. 3 or 4 siege tanks. Actually, the Marines even picking off these medevacs as ByuN setting his eyes on this engagement. He's able to get a good one. Even forces down that medevac. One of the siege tanks dying, I believe, before it gets dropped down. And Cure with a pretty strong army here on the bottom side. I'm not sure he has enough to break the 6 o'clock position. This game has gone so crazy in the last couple of minutes. I keep feeling like one player gets the edge and then the other one snatches it back. We just keep going and trading.
It's neck and neck right now. This is a treat of a TVT here. Not able to really regain control of the center is ByuN. Cure looks like he's going to try to edge up here. It seems like ByuN has basically put tanks up on the high ground in locations where you got to be very careful orbiting the perimeter of this location or you're going to just eat tank shots. The gold base is being taken. Now, this could be pretty big. We don't normally talk about the gold base in TVT, but I guess if you do have center control and there are bases that are of high value in the center, this is going to play a bigger role. We're also running out of any other expansions on the map.
Yeah, and Kira's done a really good job of denying the
It's a
expansions
glitch in the Matrix.
We're seeing it all over again as another command center gets taken down. And ByuN is basically double expanding to the top left and the bottom right. The bottom right base for now is going to be uncontested down by the 5 o'clock position. And Kira, I feel like he does have the advantage just because he's been mining from one additional base and also getting that gold base set up now in the center. It's so big here for Kira. ByuN, the engagements have been really good for him. I would love to get another glimpse of the Eunice lost tabs. Actually, wait, Kira coming in with 3 medevacs into the main base of ByuN. ByuN is max, so he's going to have to come in with reinforcements from the center. He can't remax to defend with the reinforcements.
Yeah, this drop is pretty gorgeous. He's going to take out the orbital. Meanwhile, an attack over here on the planetary. The SCV is trying to repair, but there are so many Stim Marines. Hold on.
Oh, hold on. Kira coming in with the reinforcements is able to make mincemeat of those Marines. I think beyond a doubt, Kira has the building armor upgrade right now as that planetary just withstood the onslaught of +3 Marines so well.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I just thought for sure it was going to go down in an instant.
Like, am I seeing this right? Well, you know, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's a huge loss of army supplies right now for ByuN, and one that he can't really afford. I mean, he's only just now secured the 5 o'clock base tasteless.
Yeah,
he doesn't have any bank.
He's got to move right now. He's going to make a lot more orbitals. He's probably going to sack some of his SCVs in favor of having anything that can attack. And we got another push coming out here. This time it's going to be Cure trying to come towards where this gold base would be. Another no man's land is created over here. And you know, that bottom right red base, it's kind of just hanging there. Like, it's there for the taking if he can get some infantry down there.
Yeah, it's just hard to play the positional game and also go all the way down into that corner, right?
It is. It's not, you can't just walk in there. He's going to open up these rocks over here. It looks like he's still dealing with siege tank shots.
That's a Liberator siege up, taking down these siege tanks. ByuN doing a really good job of playing the air game. And Kira is starting to get into that himself. He's adding in the second armory for the upgrades. He's trying to prevent ByuN from taking another expansion. But the fact that he has no Vikings here makes this really hard to do. And actually, it's a Raven transition coming in from Kira back in the late game, revamping the Raven production. We usually don't see this too often until BCs are added into the mix. So this is a cool play coming out from Kira. If he's able to disable all of the siege tanks of ByuN, he might just be able to take one of these expansions out in one fell swoop. It's going to be like 5 Ravens for Kira here in a moment.
Okay. He's going to come forward with the Vikings. He's got air superiority. No one's making a move yet. No one's budging. We do have a wraparound here. It seems like ByuN is going to go up here and try to hit 12 o'clock. I'm not sure what is here. I guess there really isn't anything other than that planetary.
Armor shredding missile coming in. ByuN cannot take this engagement.
Dude.
Actually, those medevacs, can they boost? They need to get out of there. I'm surprised ByuN actually is able to shoot Kira away, as the armor shred is just terrifying in these marine-on-marine battles. ByuN with some nice pickoffs, able to get a Raven there too. I gotta say, that went way better for ByuN than I was expecting, Tasteless.
Yeah. Great save there, though, by Kira. I thought for sure ByuN was going to get wiped. I mean, the game just continues to go on. Neither player can take each other out. You were mentioning a second ago, State, 3 port Ravens, which is wild.
I mean, we're going to go back to 5 Ravens again here for Kira, but the Liberators for ByuN have been getting so much done. I almost feel like Kira needs to throw down way more missile turrets to actually secure these bases, as the Liberators for ByuN have been worth their weight in gold in terms of dislodging siege tanks, sniping siege tanks, disrupting the mining of these expansions. I mean, look at this. So many SCVs going down.
With the Ravens, I think what he's looking for is like mass disable on tanks, armor shred, stim, and like basically a kill move.
ByuN actually stemming forward is able to snipe at least one more siege tank and to try and get a medevac as well, maybe, but biting off a little bit more than he can chew. Kira instead on the other side of this is ByuN. Does get cleaned up. These engagements are so funny. Is just one player snipes in and gets a pretty good trade, and then the other one just like stims back forward and gets like equalizes it instantly by sniping a siege tank or a medevac.
It's all eye for an eye over here.
I gotta say, ByuN has done a remarkable job of working his way back into this game. I thought a couple minutes ago that Kira had this one absolutely in the bag because he was mining from so many more bases for so long, and ByuN had such a hard time securing like a 5th and a 6th base for what felt like forever. But ByuN, just with really good Liberator play and also the positioning of his army on the map, has just been able to really laxen the lacks the pressure that Cure's been coming in with. And actually, is he going to go in with this?
Yeah, I
you
thought
can tell
he was.
he's thinking about going for the disable. I think once he sees these drops over here on the right side, Cure's probably going to go for a move in the middle.
Big drops here by ByuN. This is going to hit both corners of the map. No SCVs repairing this planetary. And some infantry coming down here to try to defend, but this is just going to be too late.
I mean, these moves from ByuN have been so clutch, and the Ravens just really haven't been able to get their value at all. Disables are now coming in. Those 4 siege tanks will get cleaned up, but I don't think this is the big win that Kier was hoping to get. Now, supplies are telling a little bit of a strange story here, so I think we might have missed some of the action on the map as ByuN supply just suddenly plummeted all the way down to 165. Somewhere a ton of ByuN's Marines just got cleaned up. I don't think it was just the fight that we saw there in the bottom right corner.
Okay.
More disables coming in.
And Kier's going to try to come down here with these Marines. He takes out the tank. He's going to be able to take out these other ones. 2 more in the back. Fire some shots. I think he can actually just keep pushing here.
I think he barely just doesn't have enough. Kier is being kind of conservative with his energy on these Ravens because he really wants to make it count. It takes a long time for that to build back up.
Dude, this TVT is insane.
Yeah, this is wild.
We might end up with somebody mining out.
I really want to see the units lost tab because if this does go into a mine out situation, it's all about efficiency in terms of the trades. And I feel like over the past couple of minutes, ByuN has been very efficient in taking battles. I mean, his mining has been so much slower, it feels, than Kier's, and yet somehow he is still equalized in terms of army supply, in terms of bank. I mean, he's getting so much damage done. Their armor shredding missiles are able to connect with basically every single Marine. These siege tanks getting so much done. Even the Vikings picking off medevacs here is so valuable for Kier. Big win there in the center, and you can see ByuN, as a result of losing the air supply, or the air battle, his gas bank is pretty much nil because he keeps losing all these medevacs. He keeps losing siege tanks.
That may be one of the most important things to note here in this entire game right now, is that there just isn't anywhere near as much gas coming in here. So any tank that's shot down, anything like that at all, like this one that we're about to see here, can't be remade, at least not immediately.
Yeah, the way
and so I think long-term, Kier could turn this into a win.
I feel like that's almost inevitable unless ByuN is able to start changing the way some of these engagements are going, because you think of the way...
Well, you know, it's funny. There's just, the gases aren't taken at 2 of his bases.
Oh, that's true.
He's just, I hadn't actually
I hadn't
noticed
even noticed that. Even the high yield Vespene gas in the top left isn't been taken.
He just isn't mining gas, so it's like he's just never going to have the kind of income. It is his fault for doing that. It's not like he's been denied it.
Right, but also in a way, it's not that bad because it does mean that he's going to have more gas in the bank later on in the game. The gas income situation isn't quite as dire as I would have expected, because I just kind of thought it's a no-brainer that he's going to be taking basically every gas at his disposal. But you think of the way some of these engagements have gone for Kier. He's running in. Losing a Raven like that is painful, but he runs in, he disables the siege tanks, the Vikings pick off some medevacs, the Marines stem forward, and it's basically just the Marines and energy for Kier being traded for medevacs and siege tanks on ByuN's side. And the fact that he is basically trading the minerals with the Marines and the energy on the Ravens for minerals and gas from ByuN, if we get to an endgame scenario, is so beneficial for Kier. Is once again, he's moving into the middle of the map. Those Ravens have to be really careful, taking a ton of damage, are able to get 2 more disables, and now Kier stemming forward is coming into an engagement, but not a very good one. I mean, the arc is still pretty good here for ByuN. I think Kier might have just barely enough.
Meanwhile, a big drop over here at the gold bases is almost mined out. The SCVs are going to be shot down, no doubt, the orbital right after that. Kier is returning back home to try to clean this up.
That engagement for Kier going a little bit better than I was expecting there in the center of the map. I thought for sure ByuN was going to be able to turn that around, but...
The thing is, if ByuN just takes his gases, he will have the income, I think, to come out ahead.
Yeah, this is a really awkward situation.
Now that we see the gas geysers that don't have refineries built on there, like, the misplay is kind of glaring, right?
I mean, especially the high yield gas in the top left. I feel like you almost have to take that one. I understand not saturating at the 6 o'clock base, because that is kind of a safe base that if you lose that expansion, you basically lost the game already, right? But top left, I could see a world where ByuN loses that expansion and still Kier somehow mines the gas from that. It's a very high value expansion in a situation like this one where it is going to go split map, but ByuN has been able to be cost efficient as low gas as he's been. I mean, Kier is bringing out all these tricks. He's got the double armory for the upgrades in the sky. He's coming in with all of these disables and the Ravens, the armor shredding missiles, and ByuN with basically a Marine siege tank army has been able to get so much damage done. It's honestly quite remarkable, and a lot of it comes down to drops like this one with just 2 or 3 medevacs and Marines, and Liberators also flying across the map, just causing problems for Cure everywhere.
Okay, another push in here. I don't know where this is going to go. The gas incomes are the same, by the way, now. Obviously, one has more bank than the other, but, like, you know, there are not really other long-term bases on the map. So I almost wish we could just check every single resource spot here and kind of see where we're at. Because things could slow down dramatically coming up here. By the way, we don't have this that often in TVT.
No, this is...
I feel like I can't remember the last game where we were even talking about this being a possibility.
And I feel like if we do get a game like this one, it doesn't look quite like this. It's usually more towards mech. It's more late game. I feel like we almost got stuck in these mid-game armies here with Cure. The highest tech he's going for is basically 8 Ravens. Cure once again stationing himself in the middle of the map. Cure's map presence has been really good, but ByuN has just been so tricky with attacks like this one. Cure is going to catch it, so he won't lose these planetaries here on the top left side. Even throwing down another armor-shredding missile for good measure. And I want so bad to see the units lost tab Tasteless. I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just so hard to read with the way these players have been doing these different styles.
Oh.
Okay, Cure coming in again, this time with almost a full surround. There isn't much of an army here for ByuN in the middle. The Ravens can actually disable all of these siege tanks. This is a pivoting moment.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. It might be... is he in too deep? I guess he has taken out every tank that's disabled. Wow, he leaves those other 2? No, he goes back.
Yeah, basically every single siege tank got taken out there for ByuN. He has 3 more elsewhere on the map, but Cure basically trading his top left base for all of ByuN's siege tanks. It's a pretty good move here. It is scary because the bio ball is still so high here for ByuN, but I think the siege tank count here for Cure is just a little bit too high for that to matter, and now he's able to take down these orbital expansions as well. This gold base still has minerals. There still is gas. 1 Raven does get picked off. 86 Marines to 30, by the way. ByuN, that is his real trick, his trump card right now is just having all these Marines.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all you need.
If he's able to catch Cure out of position, it could
Oh
be
my
a
God,
huge
he got the
win. Just
Ravens.
like that, he gets the Ravens.
What?
That's very expensive.
He does, okay, this is important to note. He, at the very top left on blue's side, he does have a CC. So there are minerals he could be getting from there.
Now
He's
the
gonna dive
Marines,
in.
they're coming forward, but there's a lot of siege tanks, Staseless Marines trying to get on top of the siege tanks to mitigate the splash damage. And he is able to clean up a lot of them, but it is an expensive trade as you see ByuN's supply almost plummet here. 40 more army supply now for Cure.
Cure still has a healthy base mining in the bottom right. He laid so many mules up here. A scan. He's going to go up here and just try to kill this.
Yeah.
ByuN's going to be on the move as well.
Insane game.
Oh,
those siege, the siege tank hitting the clumped SCVs. I like Cure not overreacting to that base getting taken in the top left. I think he identifies that he just wants to control the center of the map, able to pick off more siege tanks. Be careful with the sky units, though, here. That could have been so much worse.
Okay, here come those Marines. These are mostly going to die out. I mean, the mules are, I should say. ByuN's getting very small. Just a couple tanks, and I guess whatever's in these medevacs up here is basically all he has to work with. The Marines are stimming and hitting this CC that's up at the top, basically on Cure's side of the map. A drop's going to come through here. I don't know what's back at home to defend.
Oh,
but
he can catch even more Ravens.
Yeah, ByuN is going to quietly unload over here and try to go right into production and try to cause chaos that way. Here we go.
Great move. Stimming forward. Those Ravens are helpless. At least one of them going to get taken out. Surely, man, that +3 armor is paying dividends right now here for Cure. As all the Ravens will survive, ByuN going to try and work his way into the main base, as you said, Tasteless. And at the same time, he's breaching the front. He knows that Cure has to send these forces back to defend.
Okay, he's hitting infrastructure now. And this is a fire that has to be put out.
It's also a scary moment for ByuN, though. If this bio gets cleaned up in the main, which I think it might, this is a huge bulk of ByuN's army supply, and he doesn't really have the mineral bank to remax.
Yeah, he can't really do much with this. He is mining from the gold base. We did see those mules land there, but yeah, this is an execution at this point in time. An overexposed tank is going to be picked off immediately. What? Okay.
We'll get another shot of that Siege Tank and Marine just battling it out there for the natural expansion. All right, Marine finally does clean it up. ByuN dropping more mules, trying to increase his income as rapidly as possible here. Barely able to escape with these 2 Siege Tanks that he desperately needs to. Right now, Cure with almost 50% more army supply and so much energy on these Ravens. All these Siege Tanks can get disabled here for ByuN if he's not careful. Disable is coming in from Cure as he's inching forward onto this gold base with the Siege Tanks. Not a lot of bio here on the ground to support the Siege Tanks here for Cure, but I mean, +3 tanks pack such a heavy punch. See the army supply right now, 2.5k more gas in terms of army here for Cure versus ByuN. Very high-tech army with 11 Ravens.
This game's insane. I feel like Cure's going to barely win. There's more workers, there's a bigger army, and it does seem like ByuN is bleeding off a couple more units. ByuN's had these incredible moments where he's able to drop or stim in and hit a specific location. There just isn't many more resources on the map for either side. Gas is banked up extremely high for Cure. It's not looking bad for ByuN either. Now the dilemma is the lack of minerals coming in. So we flipped the scenario from what ByuN was in earlier.
Yeah, this is one of the problems you run into if you play this basically low-tech style that ByuN is with just Marine, Siege Tanks, and Medevacs. That thought actually is going to come in. Armor Trading Missile does drop, so Marines can trade a little bit more efficiently here for Cure. But still, ByuN does have enough to unseat this. The worry for me is that the army supplies right now, I mean, Cure, once he comes and cleans this up, ByuN just doesn't have the mineral income to remax. Look at that, 400 minerals a minute for a moment down there in the bottom left of your screen. I feel like this is,
again, though, it does
the
seem
last breath of ByuN in this map. I mean, he is really trading out a lot. He's down to 8 Marines tasteless.
He has these great engages that are then crushed by whatever Cure has, you know, somewhere else on the map. That's going to be a GG. Cure takes game number 1. One of the best TVTs, man. Late game TV, I mean, you can't tell me that was not hype. That was an excellent game. I think it was like 35 minutes or something. That was insane.
And the fact that ByuN was able to play just Siege Tank Marine Medevac that entire time was kind of insane. We were commenting on it doesn't make sense for him to not take this high yield Vespene gas or take this gas at 6 o'clock.
Right.
ByuN never intended to go into a late game where he's going to be playing with these high-tech units. He just cares about the minerals, and in the end, it was kind of his Achilles heel, because one of the nice things of playing a mineral and gas balance style is you're not eating into just one resource. If you play purely into the gas, you think of a Zerg that invests a lot into Vipers, into Infestors, into, say, Ultralisk, these high gas units like in a ZBT, suddenly they run into this problem where there's no gas left on the map. They have minerals, they can only make lings. ByuN had the opposite problem there, where he basically had no minerals left because his entire army, the entire game, was Siege Tanks and Marines. He had no more minerals left. It was only gas left that he can mine from. So we'll see if ByuN's going to come out with the same style. We're about ready to go into game number 2 on Site Delta. Cure leading 1-0. Can ByuN bring it back?
Let's get ready to rumble, rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. You looking for trouble? Let's get ready to rumble, rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Tell them it's going down now. Let's.
All right, that's going to be a tough game to top here.
Yeah.
Let's see what this is going to look like. I don't see the who's who. Okay, so ByuN's here at the top left. Cure's at the bottom right. I forgot my monitor doesn't have the player names on it. Yours
Oh, that's
does.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm always looking at mine.
yeah,
so.
yeah. I'm actually almost always looking at yours, but every once in a while glancing at mine. We love you too.
From
Puerto Rico. Beautiful place.
Only Zerg.
Yeah, that was a sick game.
That was crazy.
That was, I will not lie, that was a harder one to cast and follow. There was like a lot going on.
And it was a weird style from both players too. Cure only basically second into Ravens the late game, and ByuN just sticking on low gas. Just Marines and Siege Tanks and Medevacs all the way through the end of the game was kind of insane. We don't see that very often. That's a very ByuN styled TVT.
Well, I do wonder if he's supposed to switch out of it after a while. You know, you can cut gas and get more minerals and make Marines, but we kind of saw the same thing happen over and over. Okay, great. He stims. He's got, like, let's say 60 to Cure's 40. He'll stim. He'll break through a position where there's Marines in a tank. And then 20 seconds later, even though all the SCVs were killed and maybe a command center was killed, guess who's coming? the rest of Kira's army. That's not as fast, but can kill the Marines. And on some level, it does seem like over time, ByuN's kind of feeding in to Kira. Like, Kira's fine at taking blows if he knows he can clean up that army later on.
Yeah, and at the same time, back to the point I was making earlier, the fact
Yeah.
that Kira's army was much more well-rounded resource-wise. It needs both minerals and gas, which means that Kira's naturally spending a little bit less minerals than ByuN is in that situation. Means that the resources on Kira's side of the map, they basically last longer because he's got this more diverse pool of resources to pull from. It's not just the minerals, which is basically what ByuN was doing, which eventually run out a lot faster than your opponents. And so I wonder if ByuN will go for the same style. I think Site Delta plays a lot better for the style that ByuN was going for if he wants to go into this, because there's many more expansions to take. There's a lot of different attack paths you can go into if you want to go that drop-heavy style. Alcyoning kind of lends itself a little bit more to the split map scenario, although it doesn't quite go the way that it did in the last game very often. Site Delta, oftentimes much more chaotic in terms of battle, just because there's so many different avenues of attack.
So in this game, we have both sides taking a base, teching up here into kind of 1-1-1 style. We need to look at the add-ons and what it's going to be attached to get an idea of what kind of game we're going to have. It's still very hard to call what each side's going to do at this point in time.
Basically mirrored builds.
Yes, at least for now. Both sides getting a Cyclone, double Marines here for ByuN.
Yeah, just going to wait and see when one of them deviates. I almost feel like we're watching a PvP right now where we're waiting for the Siren X core to finish.
Well,
see what tech gets thrown down.
It kind of is like that. You know, we got to see where the deviation's going to be.
All right, so ByuN is going to be going for a drop. He did go for that Reaper early on, and what else is in this one? Oh, we're going to see. Oh, they're going to meet in the middle of the map, Tasteless.
Oh, this is funny.
Who's going to notice first?
Now, I don't know that Blue can unload as easily. He's going to be over this area. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just going to boost out of there. I love these quirky little engagements that you have sometimes in TBTs. Both players go for the drop. They just see each other in the middle of the map. It's like, okay.
The
Let's go home.
The medevacs wiggle around and then run back home.
Uh-huh. I think if ByuN noticed just a hair earlier, he might have been able to get a little bit more damage on this medevac. The fact that it was just like 1 or 2 shots for the Cyclone means that Kira does have enough HP that he can still play a little bit risky with this medevac going in for a drop into the main base of ByuN. And ByuN instead is going to go back home and kind of play defense, I guess, anticipating that Kira will continue with this aggression. Yeah, look at this. He's locked in. He has a good feel that something like this is going to come in. Instantly spots at the supply depot. Good reaction there from ByuN. If Kira's army unloads instantly, it will be trouble. I think ByuN might actually bait this out a little bit. See, he has the medevac sitting at the triangle third. He kind of wants Kira, I think, to drop so that he can pounce with everything, but...
Yeah, I don't know if he's selling it enough. I think he should probably...
He's selling it now. No reaction yet, but Kira's not taking the bait. Oh, is he, though? The
what's up,
Cyclones to the
son?
Marines! Look at this! The lock-on! Barely misses it!
What?
Oh, man, that was a beautifully executed trap, just
Dude,
barely missing.
I cannot believe he got away.
Yeah, Kira
That's
thread the
crazy.
needle.
And he's going to push regardless. That's
I mean,
wild.
if that medevac goes down, I feel like this push basically can't happen from Kira. But the fact that the medevac survived and all those units also survived means that this army has so much more of a punch. I wouldn't even mind if Kira just pulled like 2 or 3 SCVs just to repair this medevac and try and retain the sky. Right now is another engagement coming in. I don't know if this is the right move here from Kira.
This doesn't feel right.
Disable's coming in. The Marines are getting a huge engagement, and Kira maybe was feeling a little bit overconfident after he was able to escape from disaster.
Kind of an odd move for him to go in like that. I mean,
yeah, that was a bungled attack. I can't believe he just ran into that position with a siege tank already sieged up with 2 Ravens.
yeah, especially when you see the Ravens, you got to think, no, this is, they're always going to have an answer to my tanks. It's so much of TVT, if the tanks have enough time to fire, is about how many times they get to fire.
Yeah, that was...
And Disable guarantees them that, unless they're really out of position.
Now the 3 SCVs come.
Yeah. I'm sorry, there's no command center, right, for Cure?
No, I think that's why he was so determined to make that push happen, but instead it's ByuN with 3 CCs who's pushing this. And
oh, what is that move? That was crazy. You almost lost 2 tanks for nothing.
Both these players getting a little bit antsy after the last game, I think.
Yeah.
They probably don't want this one to go to 30 or 35 minutes, knowing that they probably have to place. One of them has to play Maru in the winners match, right? You don't want to exhaust yourself.
It's exactly. I mean, this is going to be such a marathon of a day for both of these guys. But yeah, Cure's had a sloppy start so far.
Another engagement coming in.
Wow.
That Raven gets picked off by the Vikings. A little bit of sloppy air micro here by ByuN.
Almost gets the second Raven, too.
And although that wasn't the best engagement there for ByuN, I think he just is still carrying so much of the momentum from the early game. The real risk right now is that Cure, with his ballooning Viking count, is going to be able to maintain air superiority here, because that is one of the ways that these pushes can actually become very snowbally here in TBT, is just having complete air superiority early on. Once your opponent runs out of scans, and you can start inching forward with your siege tanks and dislodging them, because the siege tank can shoot further than it can see, that air superiority can come in clutch. But I'm wondering whether that window is closed here for Cure, because ByuN, he is starting to corral. Like the Viking count, it's not that big of a discrepancy as it was a minute ago here. They're both reactoring them out. It's now 11-8. That is manageable here for ByuN. Especially with engagements like that. Oh, the armor shredding missile too. This is huge for ByuN.
Okay, he whips around and takes out the Viking, but he should not be able to win this fight. Well, hold on. A Cyclone comes up here, which fuzzies the math. He takes out another Viking. There is a counterattack coming up here. And I don't know if a scan saw it or what, but we're immediately seeing Cure. He's going to be going right towards it.
Oh, if ByuN catches this, it could just be a game-ending move right now.
Well, I think it's going to be Cure that might end up catching him here.
Yeah, but the Marine's getting so much damage done in the natural expansion. The siege tanks do get cleaned up, but
it's the same story as the longer game where this just gets trapped in here. But I mean, you're right. There's a lot of SCVs being killed here. This is 32 workers, by the way. What? I didn't realize how all in this is.
Yeah, Cure basically lost all of his economy. And keep in mind, I mean, he had that very late third CC, so the SCV count already wasn't that great there for Cure.
He was much more all in than I even appreciated. It's funny, he killed both the SCVs that were making both the E-base too. It's so painful.
It's going to be 1-1 to a Terran with basically no upgrades. And Cure, after that Viking engagement earlier on, basically lost his air superiority.
So we're almost 100% going to go to game 3 here.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how you come back in this one as Cure. I mean, yeah, you do have the third command center underway, but you're already one full upgrade behind. You just lost half of your economy. Your army can't beat your opponent's army, and also you don't really even have the mobility in your advantage. I mean, this could be big if he gets the big siege tank shots on the Marines. It's a lot of damage getting done. I mean, ByuN just kind of losing all of that there, but I still don't know if it's going to be enough.
This is a funny counterattack. It's like the slowest unit.
What is this series that we're watching? This is insane.
It's been different, man. I'll say that.
We have landed Vikings getting killed by siege tanks in the natural expansion of Cure at like the 10-minute mark.
Cure's going to try to just kind of push out and see what he can do. I think, again, I think math is just not on his side here.
Cure doesn't even have combat shields. This is insane. It just started. Combat shields just started, Tasteless. This is one of the wonkiest TBT games I have seen. Another engagement happening. ByuN's going to lose basically all his Vikings if he's not careful.
Now, I mean, if ByuN makes maybe 3 or 4 consecutive blunders in a row, maybe there's a world where he can Cure can do something. But
I mean, the army is better for Cure. The army supplies do lie a little bit because for ByuN, it's basically just pure Marines.
Right.
But almost all of the Vikings getting picked off.
Decent number of the Marines get shot down.
GG.
All right. Kind of anticlimactic. Yeah.
What a bizarre game.
Weird one, for sure. I think Cure definitely going to be regretting not just kind of going into development mode. Because ByuN did the same thing. He just kind of powered up and tried to go tit for tat and, try to get ahead by a base, try to have a good counterattack. And Cure was basically going for a closer. He was trying to go for some kind of a kill move that would end this. And so here we are. We're going to game 3.
And really good defense by ByuN. Let's not forget that he just barely missed catching a full medevac worth of units right before Cure's push. Cure was able to escape with the majority of that army, and still ByuN was able to defend the 2-base push while going for a third command center in really convincing fashion, too. I mean, Cure just got stomped as soon as he came into what would have been the third base of ByuN. So a bit of a different game there from game number 1.
Yes.
A lot wonkier. Kira a lot more aggressive. Let's see what's going to be in store for us here in game number 3 on Golden Ore.
Yeah, guys, remember that the winner of this match is going into the winner's match to face off against Maru. So a lot more TVTs ahead. Let's close this series out.
Let's get ready to rumble, rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. You looking for trouble? Let's get ready to rumble, rumble. Let's get ready to rumble. Tell them it's going down now. Let's
All right, Team Liquid's Cure spawning. The top left is the blue Terran. Shopify Rebellion. ByuN in the bottom right is the red Terran, tying it up 1-1. And although both those games are very different, both of the early games were relatively the same. And in game number 1, we had basically no action until, I want to say almost, they were on 3 bases. Does that sound right to you? There was very little happening.
I didn't even appreciate how I was kind of expecting an inevitable third CC from Cure. I don't feel like we see Cure go for that many 2-base all-ins. And but yeah, you know, the attack backfired, and there was never a plan to expand at all. Not that I think that when the attack backfired, he should have done it. Sometimes it's better to just commit to what you're trying to do than to just like play from some permanently behind position.
But like game number 1, we had basically no early game in terms of aggression. I'm used to these kind of insane TVT builds where you try to finesse them with a Cyclone and a Medevac or some kind of drop
something
play.
with a Raven. Yeah, like sometimes a tank and 4 Marines hit somewhere weird.
But even Cure with that 2-base push in game number 2, it took so long for the action to really pick up. It feels a little bit different, this kind of TVT. And I wonder how much of this is them playing more conservatively because they know that they might be playing a rematch. There's a high likelihood these guys play a rematch in the final
Very
match.
high. I think also there might be more specialized builds being kept for Maru.
Yeah, that too.
I think that really whatever the absolute best of the best for TVT you have, if you're either Cure or ByuN, you're probably like, well, I want to use this versus Maru.
Yeah,
And if not, if you lose to him, you go, I'm going to use it again versus Cure or ByuN, whoever you are.
And this is kind of a really weird situation where Su in the very first series did not look that good against Maru. And I mean, a lot of Zergs don't look very good against Maru. It doesn't mean they're bad players, it just means that Maru is absolutely insane. But given the level that Cure and ByuN have been on recently, I feel like Su is such an underdog in those matchups that for Cure and ByuN in this first series, if you're going to kind of go into a little bit of game theory, there isn't much point in bringing out your best builds because you inevitably have to get through Maru anyway in the winner's match if you win this series. And if you fail in that, I would say odds are basically 9 out of 10. You're going to be in a rematch of this match right now in the deciding match to decide who's going to join Maru in the top 4, just assuming that you beat Su. And so it's kind of this really funky situation where, you know, we don't know how deep the builds go for both these players, how much prep they came in with, because yes, we did have 2 weeks off in GSL, but we also just had DreamHack Dallas, ESL SC2 Masters Spring. Both these guys were there. They were both competing. Maybe they didn't have that much time to prepare specifically for this set, right? And I mean, given the fact that there's going to be so many TVTs, maybe we're not going to see the best TVT builds from Cure or from ByuN until that final match.
It might be one of these situations where, and it's, you know, the idea behind a Star League like GSL or the old OSLs or MSLs is that you have these weeks of just a couple players playing, and everybody gets to watch all the games. So you kind of get to see the whole tournament pan out. And the players get to study each other and really concoct some pretty crazy strategies that can be tailored to players and maps and metas in a way that it's different from a marathon tournament. But when you have a marathon tournament like we just had in Dallas and they come back off of it, sometimes they don't have the room to get those building blocks and plays. And so you're kind of just seeing more grindy, kind of ladder-ish games almost.
Okay, Cyclone and 4 Marines coming out here for ByuN into the main base. Cure, he does have Supply Depot's position to spot this very early, and the Viking is going to catch it too.
This is literally a perfectly timed Viking to catch this. So I don't think he can get in at all. So big win there for Cure. I mean, literally perfectly timed out, like, okay, at 4 minutes and 21 seconds, I will send this up.
I'm very impressed with that Viking timing, honestly.
Yeah,
that was
perfect.
Textbook.
You know,
this is the kind of thing that if you're a Patreon subscriber to the GSL or you do the Star Balloons or whatever it is to get the replay packs. If you play Terran, if you play TBT, steal this build. If you lose to drops, steal this build. That Viking is perfectly timed to parry the medevac drop.
Especially if you're going to use it like with the clock in the game.
Right.
Like, you can actually just, when StarCraft 1 was getting into the competitive scene, there was no clock, and I'll tell you, I can't believe we didn't have a clock. It was so much easier when StarCraft 2 came out that they added that in there, and you could kind of follow the game. Like, okay, even if I'm behind, if he was playing optimally, when would he have a drop come in here? When should I be ready for this?
By the way, Kira is basically no bio units besides these Reapers. He's beginning the first 2 Marines now. For a second, I was wondering if he might go into mech, just by how much he delayed the bio, but he is going to throw down 2 more barracks, so no mech this game. Instead, it's kind of a funky opening. 6 Hellions, 2 Cyclones, and 2 Reapers are the opening units here for Kira. It's not an army we see that often in early game TBT, right?
No, I mean, not really, but you can roam with it. And look, he's going to have that third base. I guess you could create counterattacks with something like this if you wanted to.
This is a really cool build, especially because you think about this army, it is very good at kind of dealing with all of the early game aggression your opponent might throw at you. Hellions, they drop off very hard in terms of value as the army sizes get bigger, but at small numbers, before Marines get stim pack and combat shields and infantry weapon upgrades, Hellions do really well against them early on. I mean, that splash damage is a killer. So for Kira going for this high-tech army with so many Hellions and then quickly pivoting into a third base, this is a cool build. This is the kind of thing that I'm surprised he wasn't kind of saving in his pocket for a later series.
Yeah. Well, we're about to have movement here. Now, where the third base would be landed, he's going to be moving right through this.
Oh, yeah, and ByuN's out of position, too. He's basically getting ready to move across the map into Kira's expansion, and instead, Kira is actually just hiding this. Waiting until that CC drops. He already has a siege tank in position, and ByuN actually going for the counterattack.
Now,
he's not going home to defend.
Okay, so this is going to get weird. The CC's going to live, by the way. What's actually here to defend?
Kira's rallying across the map. I don't think he has any idea this is coming. He's now sending a Marine and a siege tank and a couple Marines back.
Well, he's going to see these Vikings. This could be misleading. Yeah, he's going to come right in here.
Oh, the siege tank isn't even sieged, and then high ground. Scan does drop a little bit too late, so ByuN will not get the jump on that siege tank. Instead, just going to trade out these Marines for SCVs. The 3 siege tanks here in front of the natural expansion getting a lot of damage done. The reinforcements also in the main base.
Well,
so many SCVs going down.
Yeah, Hellions and Reapers are just not good versus comms.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
A lot of damage done by ByuN, but he traded a lot of army supply to do it. In the end, it's only 10 more SCVs, but Kira also had that much faster third base, so at the end of the day, the worker counts are still completely even. And ByuN's army supply is almost entirely in Vikings. He has 7 Vikings, 3 tanks, and only 4 Marines. I feel like Kira with a counterattack could get some big damage done.
It would seem like it, right? Kira's going to be coming across the map now. ByuN, keep in mind he got this later, so he really needs to keep it. And I see 1 tank. I don't see anything else to protect him. And in fact, he's just going to get an execution on this tank. He can drive the SCVs out. He can start to target the command center. The Vikings may not be high enough in number even now, too.
The Vikings get picked off.
This is just a weird, possible close to an end to this game here. I mean, this is going to be driven back. And I don't know when he's going to be able to reclaim this. There's not another easy spot to land the CC at either. I mean, he's basically contained right now.
And this is the expansion that you need. And we
Yeah.
had 17 SCVs fall here for ByuN. I mean, Kira in one fell swoop basically got all the counter damage done that he needed after absorbing that first blow from ByuN with a counterattack. And I think eventually, with air superiority, ByuN should be able to secure this third base, but he's getting slowed down so much. And in fact, he's just going to pivot all the way to this 6 o'clock position. But again, the standing army here for Kira is just massive. The Viking numbers have thinned out for ByuN. The orbital is once again returning to the triangle third as ByuN's just decided he wants to break out of this position instead of going down to the 6 o'clock. These Marines are going to be able to take down that siege tank, but I'm not sure how much more ByuN's going to be able to survive. His income has been so slowed down. He's basically 1,000 minerals a minute in a deficit right now versus ByuN, or versus Kira, excuse me, and he's trying to take this third base again.
Disable on that tank. I think he's going to try to get in there with the helmets.
Oh,
yeah, this game's over.
What
This
a killer
is
move.
What an odd game 3. Okay, GG. Cure does win that. ByuN, I think, with a disappointing performance. I think that, you know, he's had a lot of these ideas of kind of run-bys and counterattacks. But that was a game where I think he just put himself behind. You know, if you're going to stay on 2 bases and they go on 3 and you're trying to do something, I don't think it's got to be a counterattack. I think you have to, like, deny a third or deny a natural and set up a foothold and make them fight back for it. This is not like a bunch of Zerglings you run in there with. And so what happens is that Cure's on 3 bases, and yeah, he gets out positioned, but then he just runs back with his bigger army and kills everything. And then you don't have anything to defend. You didn't manage to save any of that. Anyways, we'll talk more about that in a second. Guys, Cure versus Maru coming up for the winners match. We'll see you in a second.
Make 'em feel the heat. I can tell you fake before you even speak. I'm just heating up, you hit your peak. We not neck and neck, even in my sleep. He said start a ride, I'ma start a fire. Sweet scent of the smoke make me come alive. If you see him by my side, then they bona fide. And you can feel the heat, we don't notify. When we come, pick a side, tell them that you down to ride. It's a fire, everything is lit, lighting up the sky. In the air, long way to the ground. Better hope we fly like the time. Only get it once before it pass you by. Oh, they know we near. It's getting hot up in here. You know it get heated at the top. I'm on fire, I can't stop. I'm on fire, I'm hot. Turn me up a notch. 600 degrees, got me burning up the spot. Fresh about the